Before this goes one step further, it's time to call those out who are fakers, imposters, and imitators. You can try to mimic the greatness of others, but you will never be worthy. You may dress the part, talk the talk, but you will never be able to walk the walk. But you can never truly embody the essence of those you try to portray. You're like a cheap knockoff, a counterfeit version, desperately seeking to gain unearned praise and admirations. See, imposters are nothing but pretenders, trying to deceive others with a charade. They lack the authenticity and the integrity and the genuine talent that great people possess. They may try to steal the spotlight. They will never shine as bright as the real deal. They'll never shine as bright as the real deal. Imposters mimic the words and actions and achievements of great people, but they lack the substance and depth and the action that comes from true character and merit. You'll never be a James Baldwin. You'll never be a Martin Luther King. They may try to bask in the glory of others, but they will never be able to replicate the true essence of greatness. See, imposters may deceive some for a while, but their facade, their show, their entertainment will crumble eventually. The truth will always come to light, revealing their fraudulent nature, their fraudulent actions, or should I say their fraudulent inactions. They may try to gain unearned recognition and praise from those of you who may be supporting them and for those of you who they're trying to influence. But they will never earn the respect and admiration that comes from genuine achievement and contribution to the foundation of Black American family. To all the imposters that we'll be calling out today, know this: your charade is over. Your charade will not last. Your attempts to portray greatness in vain. Authenticity and integrity will always prevail. Greatness cannot be imitated or replicated. It is earned through hard work, talent, and basically genuine character. So drop the mask, drop the showmanship, and how about do something for the people who put you in place to do something for them, except for everyone else. Be unique, be authentic, because imposters are not worthy of non-administration respect that the true greatness of our master teachers like James Baldwin and Martin Luther King are. That's the problem here today, family. That is the problem here today. James Baldwin, not only was he a writer, and across 7 mediums, including essays, novels, and plays, and the poems, but he was for Black empowerment. And I believe having Billy Porter to portray him in a movie is a travesty, because a simple Google search would tell you much about Billy Porter that some of you may or may not have known. He has never been for Black empowerment. He has always been for LGBTQ. If you know anything about James Baldwin, his Blackness will always at the forefront of his mind, his words, and his actions. Let me show you James Baldwin. Fair use, fair use. Give me a second here, family, trying to get this queued up. I see that it's taking a
backstage. A good deal of it, but then I was behind the rostrum here.
Yes.
So I heard only some of it.
Did you hear anything that you disagreed with?
I disagreed with a great deal of it. And, of course, there's a good deal I agree with. But I think he's overlooking one very important matter, I think. Each one of us, I think, is terribly alone. He lives his own individual life. He has all kinds of obstacles in the way of religion or color or size or shape or lack of ability. And the problem is to become a man.
But what I was discussing was not that problem, really. I was discussing the difficulties, the obstacles, the very real danger of death thrown up by the society when a black man attempts to become a man.
All this emphasis upon black man and white does emphasize something which is here, but it emphasizes it or perhaps exaggerates it, and therefore makes us put people together in groups which they ought not to be in. I have more in common with a black scholar than I have with a white man who's against scholarship. And you have more in common with a white author than you have with someone who's against all literature. So why must we always concentrate on color or on religion or this? There are other ways of connecting men.
I'll tell you this. When I left this country in 1948, I left this country for one reason only, one reason. I didn't care where I went. I might have gone to Hong Kong, I might have gone to Timbuktu, I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than had already happened to me here. You talk about making it as a writer by yourself. You had to be able then to turn off all the antenna with which you live, because once you turn your back on this society, you may die. You may die. And it's very hard to sit at a typewriter and concentrate on that if you're afraid of the world around you. The years I lived in Paris did one thing for me. They released me from that particular social terror, which was not the paranoia of my own mind, but a real social danger visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody.
That was James Baldwin. Now, let me introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Martin Luther King, because in his speech, The Mountaintop, we need to understand something here, family. Because the one thing that people are not stating in this whole Justin Jones and Justin Pearson theatrical being expelled and reinstated to the Tennessee legislature is that what is the real reason they were fighting? What was the real reason they were thrown out? Right? Protesting to install gun bans, not for racial equality or reparations or a protected class for foundational Black Americans or anything that all of these Black people got out here and started to march to support. That wasn't it. There's a large difference, a huge difference between Martin Luther King and Justin Pearson. And we have to understand that, Justin Jones, but we have to understand that Justin Pearson, he has dual allegiances because he partially is Filipino. But we won't go there today because I want you guys to understand something here. As we break this down, I want you to understand the use of the vivid metaphors that Martin Luther King uses in his speeches, and not just for showmanship, but to instill power inside people, to put that power then into action. Because Martin Luther King, what he does, he embodies the spirit of a true leader, fiercely standing up for what he believes in, even in the face of adversity and danger. See, not only was Martin Luther King's speech a fiery speech, but it was almost like a rallying roar for a call to action for Black people to be unified. He challenged the uprising to fight for what is right and to never back down. His words still echoes in our hearts today. We still speaking about Luther King 60, 70 years later, urging us to continue to work. He sought to strive for equality and to fight against discrimination in all its forms. But his last speech that was most well known was going to the White House to get our check. Let's hear it.
Into the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, But I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
There's a large difference between Martin Luther King and these imposters, fake, fraudulent imitators of Martin Luther King, because it wasn't just his words that were powerful. It was the unwavering conviction in his voice. It was the fire in his eyes and the resolute determination in his stance. He embodied the spirit of a true leader. That's the difference. But whatever the white media has shown us, the dominant society has shown us time and time again, when they prop up certain political figures that look like you and I with dark melanated hue, they're now attacking our master teachers. They are now attacking our master teachers through showmanship, symbolism, and always more of the same of benign neglect. But just to put things into context, I want you to hear our master teacher, and let's do a compare and contrast.
Someday every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
So I just want to give you a quick synopsis of Martin Luther King, family, as we all know, our great master teacher in Black empowerment. But there are some imposters that came along, and they're trying to, as they would state, embody the spirit of Martin Luther King. This is more of a mockery because they're not standing up for Black people. But if you notice, the majority of the people that surrounding them are Black Americans. But this rally here in Tennessee, those rallies there in Tennessee, the protests that they held on the legislative floor in Tennessee was not for Black people. It was for everybody else. Black people, we don't have a problem within the Black community of a mass killing. We like to say mass shooting, but multiple people continue to die by the hands of white criminals with guns that they purchased legally. But now we have two sacrificial lambs that have been expelled by the Tennessee legislature, but because they're Black and one seems to imitate and be the impartial of Martin Luther King, has Black folk rallying behind him to support them. They would like to label this racial, but we understand that white supremacy take both sides of the argument. Shout out goes up to Professor Black Truth. We understand this. But we continue to be blind. We continue to be deaf. We continue to galvanize our people behind causes that don't benefit us. We do not have a problem in the Black community of mass killings. And some of you are going to talk about Baltimore. Some of you are going to talk about South Side of Chicago. That's called gang violence, family. And every now and again, yes, there are stray bullets that unfortunately hit innocent people. But tell me a culture in the Black American community where one of us randomly grabs a gun and goes into a public place and start to unalive different people. But here you go. Here you go. This is Justin Pearson.
They need for their extracurricular activities and their wellness. We do
As
all
you
that
said,
to make sure that Memphis is properly represented. But one of the most important things that we do is make sure people go out to vote and that their voices is heard and that their representatives are properly represented in office. We are proud. Field operations.
for Justin J. Pearson, Representative Justin J. Pearson. And so that concludes our speaking portion. We will now begin our march down South Main to North Main.
But they had marching and protesting all through the streets, trying to reenact the spirit of Martin Luther King. Now, if this was genuine, if this was truly genuine, then I would be behind it 100%. But we understand that this is fake, fraudulent, and that these black representatives are simply puppets for the white power structure there in Tennessee. And what they're trying to do is influence and galvanize black people nationwide in order for you to do what? To vote Democrat yet once again. Family, from the 60s, our grandmothers and grandfathers, our mothers and fathers have been duped, tricked, and manipulated only because they have not been listening of what these so-called black representatives were going to do. That's because these black representatives have never stated what they were going to do for black Americans. But they've always been standing up for non-black Americans, for immigrants, for LGBTQ, for everybody. Let me see if I can get this together, family. Because there's a lot to be said here. There's a whole hell a lot to be said here.
Gonna keep on walking.
This is truly despicable. Family, can we point out that majority of the supporters behind these reinstated black Democratic representatives of Tennessee are black? But the reason why they got expelled wasn't for anything that truly empowers black people. It wasn't for us being a protected class. It wasn't for reparations. It wasn't for land grants. It wasn't for equal schooling, equal education, equal loan. Nothing that can empower black people. This is about gun bans. Unfortunately, 6 people in Tennessee became unalive by a mass shooter that was Caucasian. And the victims of that mass shooter were Caucasian. But here we go with black people fighting everybody else's battles. Where are the white legislators at? Where are the white Democratic, where are the white Republican legislators to fight for gun restrictive laws? Where are these Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon, Caucasus Mountain? Where are they at? Why are they not out here? Because they don't exist. And then I want you to ask yourself this one question. Why is it the so-called only 2 young black male Tennessee legislators with a sacrificial lamb for something that affects the majority of the dominant society, white people? Justin Pearson does not embody the spirit of Martin Luther King. Billy Porter doesn't embody the spirit of James Baldwin. And someone like Justin Jones, who has dual allegiances to the Asian community. None of these people are speaking about black empowerment. None of these people are speaking about for black justice. None of these people are speaking out and up for us. But yet again, look who's supporting him.
This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like.
This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. If we don't get no justice, then you don't get no peace. Then you don't get no peace.
Family, let me help you guys out, because it's something that you need to be aware of. Because when I look at these two, when I look at Billy Porter, and this disrespectful by the white media and white entertainment society to get Billy Porter, who's never stood up for Black empowerment. Because you can try to mimic the greatness of others, but you would never be worthy. You may dress the part, and you may talk the talk, and you may even do the same walks that our great ones did, but you can never truly embody the essence of those you're trying to copycat. Because in the end, you're like a cheap knockoff. You're like a counterfeit, desperately seeking attention, praise, and admiration, to be lifted to a higher plane of existence within the Democratic Party. See, these imposters are nothing but pretenders, trying to deceive others with their charade and showmanship. They lack integrity. They lack charisma. They lack action. They lack execution. Why would I get behind people who are not for my own best interest, but they're for everyone else's? See, they may try to steal the spotlight, but they will never shine like a Malcolm X, like a James Baldwin, like a Martin Luther King. Because what they do, they mimic the words and actions in some occasions and achievements in some occasions of great people, but they lack the substance and depth that comes from their true character and the actions on the grassroots that they have put forth time and time again in time. What they try to do is gather in others to support this. Just because you have the ability to galvanize those unfortunate Black people who are ill-informed, you will never be able to replicate the true essence of our master teachers. See, you guys may deceive some for a while, but this showcase, this play, this theatrics, political theater will eventually crumble. Because in all of this, when you're speaking truth to power, the one thing that Black folk have to understand is, what are you saying and what are you doing? Well, family, time and time again, we get these Black political pundits and they're saying absolutely nothing. They're saying nothing to empower the Black community. Zero, zilch, donut, nothing. And by doing so, they may try to gain unearned recognition and praise, but they will never earn the respect and admiration that comes from you, the grassroots. They will never achieve that. So these imposters out there, you know the charade won't last, right? You give us some great attempts to portray greatness, but the integrity of your inaction, the absence of legislation that empower Black people in Tennessee and around the nation. See, these are some of the things you cannot imitate or even replicate of our great ones, because they earned their stripes through hard work, blood, sweat, tears, and they even gave their life to the cause. So I tell you, drop the mask, drop the show. Stop the showmanship before it gets too late. But white supremacy has a way to do with the tools to lift you up as fast as they bring you down. because one of our master teachers, Martin Luther King, before he got assassinated, that the white media really don't want you guys to know and to hear. And it only takes a minute for you guys to get where Martin Luther King was going. And this is after I had a dream, because he wanted equality. He wanted everybody to be integrated, not segregated. But I want you to listen to this 1 minute clip, family, and tell me what you think.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And this is what we are faced with, and this is a reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
And I want you guys to focus on the powerful words of Martin Luther King, because it's important that all of these other black political figures out here, the NAACP, NCOBRA, the Urban League, all of these organizations out here was not putting in the work like Martin Luther King, especially when he was talking about reparations, when he was talking about getting what is owed, when he step by step, term by term, broke down what the white power structure have done to blacks in this country, that integration was not the answer, and that foregoing integration and trying to be integrated, though things were going to be racially better for black people, he then understood that it's about economics. Above all, it's about economics. He understood that we wasn't going to get racial equality. He understood that we wasn't going to get justice. But when he started speaking truth to power, family, this is when our great Martin Luther King was assassinated. When he started talking about going up to Washington because of all of the neglect and what our forefathers been through, and Jim Crow and slavery, that is when he got assassinated. When he started to talk about the money. That's when it happened. So when I look at things like this, and we have these imposters in our mix, quote unquote, the status quo needs to change, I want you guys to hear this disrespect. Come up with your own cadence. Come up with your own calling. Come up with your own spirit, because you, sir, are very disrespectful.
And a broken state into the place that God calls for it to be. This is the democracy that will bring people from the back. People who've been pushed to the periphery, to the center of justice. This is the democracy that is going to transform our nation. This is the democracy that's going to lift up the victims of gun violence.
Fair use, fair use.
The NRA and the gun lobbyists. This is the democracy that they're scared of. This is the democracy that they're worried about. Because this is the democracy that changes the status quo. This is the democracy that changes the status quo.
And family, must I point out, the two black women to his right side are all giddy, because, again, family, a lot of his cadence, a lot of the word structure, the sentence structure is mimicking our great Martin Luther King. But he's not speaking truth to power. He's speaking about gun bans. Family, gun bans, gun restriction, gun laws, constitutional carry has nothing to do with Black empowerment. I'll let it finish.
We've got news. The status quo needs changing, and the status quo needs you. So today we march, and we gonna keep fighting, and we gonna keep pushing, because we believe that this is what democracy looks like.
Oh, Lord. Yep. That's all I have, family. That's all I have. We need to truly wake up. I don't care where the moron Ron DeSantis, I don't care what none of these governors are talking about stop woke culture and all of this, which we know is a term for Black people. Stay woke. Stay 100% woke and understand what this system has been doing for 400 years to our people. And just because you have two Black political pundits, two Black political showmen, two Black political actors, don't fall for the trick bag. They're puppets, and white supremacy is the puppet master. See, what happens with us, we get confused. We get discombobulated because what they do, they put people in front of us that look like us. They put people in front of us who share the same culture, but they're turncoats, they're traitors. They turned their back. This is all for political positioning, and of course, it's all for the money. I see I got Robbie Rob in here. B1 family to Jermaine. Armageddon is in the room. So what is FBA? I tried to Google it. It's only Amazon FBA came up. FBA means Foundational Black American. Robbie Rob. But family, that's what I'll have for you guys today. Thank you for joining me. I know I've been out for a while. I've just been sitting back and watching all of this despicable showmanship that yields no results. You guys have a good one. I'm out.